Okay, let's get it. Black girl magic dripping. Yeah, she's on a mission. Keeping our culture lifted. Now you can watch and listen. And Tammi Mac. Tammi Mac. Oh, what show is that? It's the Tammi Mac show on Fox. So, Tammi Mac. Tammi Mac. Yeah, who that? Tammi Mac. Tammi Mac. Hey, so you know it's Tammi Mac.
Well, welcome to the Tammi Mac Late Show on Fox Soul. Hi there. Good evening, everybody. I'm Tammi Mac. So my best friend, Robbie, was a non-judgmental friend who knew how to keep a secret. She was the best friend a girl could ever have. Then I went to college in North Carolina. And Robbie, well, she stayed behind in Houston. We lost touch until one night I called her to talk about how my boyfriend was treating me. Wasn't very good. And I went on and I went on and on and on. And she was unusually quiet. Robbie, I said, "What's wrong? You good?" "I have AIDS," she said. I was quiet. How? What? Who? I simply said, "Oh, girl, you'll be fine." Honestly, that's what I said. "Oh, girl, you'll be fine." And I honestly thought she would be fine. I believed what I said. I mean, after all, she wasn't gay. She wasn't white. She wasn't a man. Of course, Robbie would be just fine. But she wasn't. My best friend, Robbie, died of AIDS. And now I knew it was real. The first cases of acquired immune deficiency syndrome, or AIDS, were reported in the United States in 1981. Since then, more than 700,000 people have died from AIDS. There is a perception among many that AIDS is not as serious of a challenge today as it was in 1981, when the then President Reagan would not even utter the word AIDS. But according to HIV.gov, more than 1.2 million, let that sink in, 1.2 million people are currently living with HIV in the United States. And about 14% of those people are completely unaware that they have it at all. The group most affected by HIV and AIDS are Black, gay men. But among the heterosexual population, Black women have the highest rate of infection, making this issue even more important today, and why HIV and AIDS is still a battle that must be won, and why the business of being Black tonight on the Tammi Mac Late Show is AIDS and HIV. Tonight, the Tammi Mac Late Show takes this issue from two perspectives: the perspective of increasing awareness through film, and the perspective of educating through real life stories and experiences with HIV and AIDS. First, I welcome the cast and crew of the award-winning short film, 90 Days. Take a look.
What is doing too much?
Just hope I'm doing the right thing.
Jessica is a wonderful woman. Do you love her?
Taylor, I have to tell you something.
Please welcome award-winning filmmaker iN-Hale Williams. Hey, Nathan.
Hey, Tammy, how are you?
I'm good. Thank you for being on the show tonight. Award-winning writer, director, and actor Nick Few.
Hey,
Award-winning actor Jennia Fredrique Aponte.
And writer-director. Hey, how are you?
And writer-director, yes, please. Let me get that in. Please, girl. How are you, Jennia?
I'm wonderful. Thank you for having me.
So the first question I ask every night on this show is why? Why should Black people care about AIDS and HIV?
Well, I think you said it very well. We are affected the most, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm. Before our COVID pandemic, it's shaken us. Our community, our pandemic has been HIV and AIDS. So it's a very important topic that we need to get on top of.
Why should Black people care, Nathan?
Well, because this is something we can solve. There are so many problems in the world that seem so really big and seem insurmountable. But HIV and AIDS is at a point in our community and in our world with the medicine and the treatment that this is something we can actually solve. This is something that we can make a difference in our community. As you mentioned, the African-American community, the Black community is disproportionately affected by HIV and AIDS. Our infection rates continue to rise while other communities have seen decreases in their infection rates. And it really comes down to a couple of basic things. It's knowledge, education, and removing stigma and getting people tested so that they know their status. HIV has grown from the death sentence that it was for so many in the 80s to a manageable chronic disease, a virus now. And so that means if you know your status and you happen to be HIV positive and you get into treatment, you can live a full and long life. And so we just have to start having these conversations like we're having on your show. And I applaud you for this is the second time we've actually talked with you of doing the work of getting the information out there about this virus to our community, because as you probably know, Tammi, that our community is disproportionately affected, but we're also grossly undereducated about what's happening with the virus in the world, in our community.
Yeah, you talk about the stigma. It's interesting. Why do you think Black people have this stigma? Look, when I think of the coronavirus, I think of how many Black folk go, I ain't going to take the test. So if we ain't taking the coronavirus test, you know damn well we ain't about to take no HIV test.
Well, part of it is, I'll just say, part of it is because people still think it's a gay man's disease. And when, the virus first hit, that was the predominant community that was hit and still is. And so we have, in the Black community, we have all these layers that we have to get to before we even get to the virus. So it's not just the stigma about the virus, it's also about it being associated with being gay.
Yes, Jennia.
And that's absolutely true. But also, Black people have a very long history of being mistreated in the medical industry.
Absolutely.
So, so there is fear there. We have a history of, everything from the Tuskegee experiment. I can go down the list, but unfortunately, there is a history of our people being mistreated in the medical industry. So that adds a layer of fear along with, to Nathan's point, it being quote unquote considered a gay disease.
Nick?
Jennia took the words right out of my mouth. The medical community and my community have a very shaky relationship, right? Black women particularly are treated differently when it comes to pain and all that kind of stuff. So it's just, yes, we have to get over our cultural, like, not talking about things that are hurtful and harmful, but there's also a trust that has to happen between us and the medical community, that the medical community has a lot to prove to Black people, I think.
And it's interesting you bring that up because the medical community is trying to do that right now with these vaccines that they have for the coronavirus by utilizing a Black woman to be the first to get the vaccine. And in addition to that, adding that a Black woman was a part of creating this vaccine. So they are
and all of that, because they never give us credit for anything, makes me trust them even less. Sorry.
Ooh, that's interesting. So then, Jennia, how are we supposed to develop this trust that will ultimately help us not be on the bottom of the list when it comes to medical attention?
Wonderful question. It's layered, and it's not going to come. I mean, I have so many things are in my head right now. I don't trust them. One, they say we can be more affected by COVID, and the push for us to take it when I know this is the same government that didn't care about Flint having dirty water. So why do you care about our health and well-being so much now? it just doesn't add up to me personally.
I agree, and I hear what we're saying as a community, but I have a bit of a counter to that, is that I don't want what has happened to us in the past to counteract our progress as well. You know what I mean? So it has a double effect, right? So it happened to us in the past, and now we're carrying it into the present, and there's something that can save us and save our lives. And we're so distrustful that we don't even take that. So it has it's like a double whammy, you know? Yeah. I've asked all of my friends in pharmaceuticals, my medical friends, because I try to do my research, and it literally has been a unanimous yes in terms of that whether or not I should, take the vaccine. But that's on a whole nother thing. But with HIV and AIDS, it's proven that the medicine works. It's proven that the medicine extends your life. It's proven that if you are in treatment, that you become, and you are maintain your treatment, you can become undetectable. The CDC a couple of years ago put out undetectable equals untransmittable, which means that if you are undetectable, it is almost impossible for you to pass the HIV virus on to someone else. And so the medicine in HIV treatment is proven, and it is saving lives, and it's not something that we need to be distrustful of.
Jennia talks about layers and how it's a layered situation here. I want to talk about the layers of the short film, 90 Days, because it's a doozy. It is a doozy. So we're going to talk about that when we come back on the Tammi Mac Late Show on Fox Soul. You got to wonder, could that be me? Could that be me? And what would I do in that situation? We'll talk about it when we return on the Tammi Mac Late Show.
Tammi Mac. Certain movies that I love, like Love Jones and Why Do Fools Fall in Love, those movies weren't big in the box office.
Fox Soul presents.
That's because the lack of inclusion of Black people in the rooms to make the decisions on how to market to us.
Established with Angela Yee.
Media is really a powerful tool. And our parents was like, yo, y'all in it. Y'all need to find a way to change the narrative.
Every Thursday.
That's dope. I'm glad you said that.
Stream it live.
I feel like her heartbeat is like same speed as mine, and I think we have this like deep connection, this heart connection in her heart, that there's room for me and Mom. When I'm holding her, it makes me feel calmer. It's a sensory thing. It's a thing with Asperger's.
She's really good with Anya. I've seen adults react to my daughter when she has meltdowns like she's from a different planet. And this little animal just sat next to my child and was just like, it's gonna be cool. She's my superhero.
Good job, Kit Kat.
When we adopted Lucky, we discovered all the wonderful things that make her unique.
Lucky's a little bit of a lot of things, but mostly she's pure love.
This weekend was huge for the country. Yes. We finally have a new president.
Finally!
Tamika Tiny Harris presents The Mix.
Millennials, Gen Z, we went out there and we really hit the polls.
It shows how powerful our voices really and truly are.
Every Tuesday night.
We don't know if they're going to go drag the president out there, if he don't want to give it over.
I would pay to see that. I would pay to watch them drag.
Not WWE.
Show. Welcome back to the Tammi Mac Late Show on Fox Soul, where tonight we tackle the issue of AIDS and HIV in the Black community with award-winning filmmaker iN-Hale Williams, award-winning writer, director, and actress Jennia Fredrique Aponte, and actor Nick Few. Hey, y'all.
Hey.
Hey.
So let's talk about this short film, 90 Days. I have seen the film, as you know, Nathan, and yeah, it is a doozy. Like, it's a decision that you would have to make. And I wonder how many of us could make that decision. But talk about the film, Jennia.
Wow. I love the film personally for many reasons. Partly because it does educate and it does shine light on HIV. Nathan wrote it. He brought the project to me, and to your point, before commercial break, the first question I asked was, "Oh my God, what if this was me?" And that is the power of filmmaking, is just that. It allows you to walk in someone else's shoes, and it creates, and Nathan and I learned this along with Nick. The touring with the film had so many people putting themselves in that position and feeling, what if this were me? And it shined a light on, and it educated so many people. And we were able to do testing at some of our screenings as well. So it's been a positive ride.
Nick, so what do you think about this film? I mean, is it a situation where most people, well, let me first ask Nathan, tell everybody about the film.
Well, yes. You know, we premiered at the NAACP Image Awards in 2017, and literally have been all over the world with this film. My thought to create this film came when, unfortunately, a friend of mine, his name was Nathan as well, took his own life in 2015 because he was diagnosed with HIV, and he felt that he was never going to be able to find love, and he just got despondent, and that just broke my heart. And so I wanted to create a love story that was a romantic comedy-esque film about HIV. I don't feel like it is something that we need to be sad about. You know, it's not something that we need to be depressing about. As we say in the film, you know, when someone gets cancer, they get a sympathy card, but when they get HIV, they get a scarlet letter. And so we set out, Jennia agreed to co-direct the film with me, and just brought just a wealth of just creativity and wonder to the project. And we set out to create a film about love and to educate at the same time. And I think that's what we've done, and we're continuing to do.
Nick, can you sum the film up for us?
Well, man falls in love, and he wants to take it to the next level. The woman that he loves has a secret, and that secret could change their entire lives, and it does. That's the film.
And the concept of the 90 days is what?
The 90 days is she makes him wait 90 days before she has this conversation. And he thinks it's just about, her being chaste and not wanting to,
have sex.
Yeah, have sex.
Well, I'm like, are you censoring yourself? You can censor yourself.
Well, Tammy, that actually comes.
You say CBS?
Right. That actually comes from. I used to write a column for Essence magazine and called The Girl's Best Friend, and one of my columns was about the 90-day rule. I believe that the first 90 days is really easy for the representative to show up, right? And it's something about 91 when the real person starts showing up that changes everything. And in this movie, Nick plays, what's the name? Taylor. So many characters are in my head. Taylor, and he's decided that Jessica, played by Tiana Paris, is the one, and his mother, played by Pauletta Washington, the great Pauletta Washington, encourages him to propose to her. And as he's getting ready to propose, she lets him in on her 91st day secret.
Yes, and I think because of the show, we can tell everybody what that secret is. Because
she's HIV positive.
And so the question becomes, because, they both fall in love within those 90 days, they literally fall in love and are enamored with each other. Obviously, he asked her to marry him, but then finds out she has HIV, or she's HIV positive. So what do you do? Like, I don't even know. Like, is that fair? Should you tell someone right off the bat, or should you wait 90 days? Like, what do you do?
That was one of the main reasons why I wanted to do this film, because like Nathan was saying earlier, it's no longer a death sentence being HIV positive. It's not a question of how do you live with it, it's how do you love with it. And I still don't have the best answer for when you disclose. Nathan, what say you?
Well, the answer is it's up to you. I don't think there isn't a hard and fast rule around disclosure. It is, as we know that many people, when they've disclosed, have faced violence, they've faced, the disconnection from their families. Dr. Jasmine Simmons, who we met at the American Black Film Festival, did her entire dissertation on this film and the way this film allows people and helps people around disclosure and using the film as a tool around disclosure. So I don't think that there's a hard and steadfast rule around disclosure. It's about the person, because it's your business that you own, and then also the environment that you're in.
Yeah, and what's interesting, what I loved about the film the most, though, Nathan, is it doesn't seem or appear to be a film about AIDS and HIV. It's this film that takes you on this nice little journey with these friends. It's almost like in the friendships kind of remind me of a Love Jones best man kind of friendship thingy. And then you kind of gradually move in, because you really become invested in this love between this man and woman. And after you become invested in it, you then have dropped your own guards and are like, oh, wow, I don't know what to do, because I like her too. And I like him too. I don't know what to do. And I think that's what we miss when we start judging people and putting that, as you say, scarlet letter on people. We don't really get to know them. We don't really get to invest our emotions in them, because we've tagged them already as useless or bad, whatever it is. And so I think you did that beautifully with the film.
Yeah, I credit Jennia I credit Jennia a lot with that too, in terms of when she read the script, she gave me some notes about creating the environment of the relationships between the people. And, this isn't just a film about HIV, this is a love story. Yeah. And Nick and Tiana bring such a wonderful warmth to it. But what you were saying, Jennia?
I was just going to say, I really feel like that was our goal, because there really shouldn't be a stigma anymore, right? Not in 2020. I wanted it to be, well, what it should be, in my opinion, is like, I have diabetes or I have high blood pressure, because you can live with it, and because you can, with the proper medicine, you can be undetectable and not even pass it on to someone. So it should be, I think it shouldn't be viewed as this disease that is this scarlet letter. It should be addressed as any other, ailment, because we don't, no one is like, oh my God, get him away from me, he has diabetes. No one says that.
We have to go, but I have to ask this question. Our soulmates are weighing in. We have so many questions here, but I'm going to go with this one. Creation Muse says, what blows my mind is this undetectable med. Wouldn't that make it even more dangerous? Isn't that kind of deceptive? The undetectable med. I guess you were talking about.
Well, I don't think it is deceptive. So we're talking about two different things, and I just want to be clear. So if you know your status and you happen to be HIV positive and you get in treatment and you become undetectable, and what undetectable means is that there are so few copies of the virus that you can't see it on a microscope, which makes you untransmittable. So it's almost nearly impossible for you to transmit it to someone else. It's not undetectable in terms of something covert or underhanded or whatever. You sharing your status is on you. It has nothing to do with the medication. The medication makes it untransmittable, but there's nothing deceptive about the medication. You sharing your status is a personal, up to you, decision.
Now, this film has won several awards, so congratulations. But the question is, when can we all see it?
And
a hush came across the room.
Oh, well, you can see it right now. You can see it right now. It's on Revolt TV. Thank you to Sean Puffy Combs and the people at Revolt. You could go to our website, 90 Days, the film.
Yeah.
and you can download it there. Like you said, we've been all over the world. We won an African Oscar.
Yes, you did.
You know, we won at Cannes and all of that. So the film is readily available. Go to our website, 90daysthefilm.com, and it'll give you all of the resources of where you can see the film.
Thank
I also
you,
like
Nick.
to add.
Go ahead, Nick.
Really quickly, I actually gained 20 pounds for the movie, so there was a lot of sacrifice on my end. Thank you.
Yeah, I would imagine that is sacrificial. Jennia, thank you so much, Nick and Nathan, for sharing your talent and the story that you're sharing with the world. I appreciate it. 90 Days is the short film. Check it out. We'll be right back to talk more about HIV and AIDS in the Black community on the Tammi Mac Late Show on Fox Soul. Thank you, guys and ladies.
Thank you.
Tammi Mac, Tammi Mac.
You're an attorney by trade. You're smarter than a lot of us that do this.
Fox Soul presents Hollywood Unlocked with Jason Lee Uncensored.
When you came in, I know there was like a lot of conversations like, well, how's she gonna fit in this platform? And I thought you did a great job.
Somebody told me that I wasn't going to do well in State of the Culture unless I got a gel nail set that was yellow.
Every Friday.
Wait, who said that?
Somebody real basic.
You know, I'm not going to put the people on Front Street, Jason Lee. Not today.
Well, I said it basic.
If I could be you, and you could be me for just 1 hour. If we could find a way to get inside each other's minds. If you could see you through my eyes instead of your ego, I believe you'd be surprised to see that you've been blind. Walk a mile in my shoes. Walk a mile in my shoes. Yeah, before you abuse, criticize and accuse. Walk a mile in my shoes. Walk a mile in my shoes. Well, before you abuse, criticize and accuse. Walk a mile in my shoes.
Well, welcome back to the Tammi Mac Late Show on Fox Soul. Tonight, the business of being Black is the effects AIDS and HIV have on the Black community. And let's admit it, it affects us. We're broadening the discussion with a panel who know all too well how AIDS affect Black people. Please welcome activist Hydea Broadbent, Emmy Award-winning AIDS activist Ray Lewis Thornton, author and speaker at In the Meantime Men, Greg Wilson, and the lead HIV tester at In the Meantime Men, Javante Wilson. Hello, everybody.
Hello.
So I'm doing swell. I want to get this conversation cracking here. And I do want to ask the same question that I ask our filmmakers and actors. Why should the Black community, why should Black people care about AIDS and HIV?
Because we are disproportionately impacted by HIV in all of the negative ways that we could be. Black men are over 60% of the case, 80% of the cases of HIV, those infected. 61% of Black women are the majority of women infected with HIV. We are the least to get into care. We're the least to stay into care. And we're the least to have our virus suppressed. Nathan talked about an undetectable viral load, which really does mean that you cannot transmit the virus. African Americans are only 40% virally suppressed. We only stay in care 60%, you know, compared to our white counterparts in 85%. And so African Americans, we really have to begin to talk about this illness in terms of it being a medical issue, so that we can actually save lives, reduce new infections, and put a stop to the way HIV is ravaging our community.
Right.
That's it.
Hadiya, you said that perfectly clear, and now we know why we should care. Absolutely. Hadiya, you were born with HIV. Is that correct?
That's correct. I was born in 1984 and diagnosed in 1987 when I was 3 years old. And at that time, we only knew of AIDS. So the report that the doctor gave my adoptive parents was I would not live past the age of 5. And now, thankful, because of the medicines, I had a remarkable 35th birthday, and I'll be 37 this coming June. So it shows how the medications are working and how it improves life. And not only can it extend your life, we can now get married and have babies without passing HIV on to our future partners or significant others. So that's why treatment as prevention is, or U equals U, is one of the best tools that we have in the fight against HIV.
Yeah, I talked about in the first half of the show how Black people, look, we don't even want to get diagnosed with diabetes. We won't go to the doctor for anything. And so I think it's a good thing to know that if you get treatment, if you get diagnosed early, that you could not only live long, but you can live a fruitful and prosperous life long. And I think that's what most people think, is that their life, the value of their life will change. But when you say you can have children, you can get married, but I would suspect that many women, Greg, would think that they can't find a husband if they have AIDS or HIV, or many men would think that they can't find a wife if they had AIDS or HIV. Your pool gets smaller when you have this infection, right?
That's what I used to feel. I've had HIV for 16 years now. And I wanted to first start by saying, in our community, we have to recognize that everybody is affected by it. So we all know somebody that has HIV or has been impacted by HIV. So that's the reason why it matters to our community. And that's the reason why we need to care. But ultimately, I remember when I first was diagnosed almost 16 years ago, I did think that it was going to be harder to date. I did think that life would change. I did think that I was not going to be as lovable, but I had to realize that, honestly, everyone is going through something. And I had to recognize what that meant. I had to get educated about it and really see exactly what that meant for me myself. So it's not always true. It's not, life doesn't change unless you want it to change in that particular way. I learned how to make something of it, of my experience. And I actually ended up writing a book about my experience. And it helped me not only share, but it helped me make sure that other people knew that they were not the only ones going through something like that. And so that's what kind of helped me through the process.
Javante, why do you think women have the highest rate of infection when it comes to AIDS and HIV?
Well, I feel like one of the reasons is because HIV is still considered a gay disease, which is not necessary. That's not the truth. I feel like if we normalize the conversation amongst the Black community, we need to start having conversations talking about prevention. We need to talk about transmission, and we need to talk about treatment.
I hate to cut you off here, but I have to make an important point. A lot of women, Black women, that's what I am, say that it could potentially be the fact that Black men being gay is so stigmatized in the Black community that they hide it. And so we have this level of down low brothers who don't share that with the women that they have sex with. What's your thought on that?
I do feel like there is some truth to that. Definitely there is some truth to that. And yet again, it's all about, it's going back to normalizing that the conversation surrounding someone's HIV status and someone's sexual orientation, also acceptance and the stigma that surrounds gay men, especially Black gay men, our community.
And may I add something to that, Tammy?
Please.
I also would like to say that most times with Black women, when you go to the doctors, it's not as readily available. Doctors don't just automatically offer HIV tests to women because most times they'll try to act as if women are not at risk. We don't know who has HIV. So whether a woman is having sex with who knows whatever, or a man is having sex with whoever, the reality is we all can be infected or impacted by HIV. So yes, I think that a lot of times women will point fingers, but I also believe that it's something else where us from the Black gay male community, we oftentimes get tested for HIV. When a lot of women go to the doctors, that's not something that doctors are offering unless you ask. So I think that could be another reason why a lot of women are finding that their infection rates are higher when they start to ask for these tests.
Yeah.
Okay, so as a woman, can I jump in here since the men are talking to us about why women get HIV? So, that we got two things going on here. At one level, we do have a stigma around HIV, which is, a broader thing. And it is both equal in the gay community as it is in the heterosexual community. Women are infected because women, we live in a false sense of security about who we love and how we love. We trust our men. Most women are infected by men who they loved and trust. And so that's, part of the issue. I'm not gay, and I am not going to say that it's because Black men are on the down low. Yes, the African American community needs to address Black gay men, deal with this issue in a way that Black gay men can live whole and healthy. But that's not the sum total of our problem. We have Black men going into prison negative and coming out positive. We have women, not using condoms. And then we still do have a small portion of women who are infected through IV drug use. And so, our statistic is a little broader than, and we have women who are in abusive relationships and husbands and boyfriends and not being able to have the power to use a condom or to say to my partner, use a condom. And so, there are a lot of layers on why women are infected with HIV. The biggest issue is because we don't see ourselves at risk. And I will say that, we don't see ourselves at risk because we do believe, and people still do believe, that this is a gay male issue. The fact of the matter is still the majority of cases of HIV are men who have sex with men. And that is an undeniable statistics that has never changed. And so we've got to begin to talk about what risk looks like in a different way. Just like they say, defund the police is it confuses people. Well, right. So does risk. Everybody's at risk. If you have unprotected sex, you are at risk, because if the penis is not in your pocket, you have no idea what it's doing when it ain't with you. Period.
There it is. Heidi, I want to know, Heidi, our soulmates are weighing in on you specifically because apparently they've all seen you grow up. You just told us how old you are. You contracted AIDS from birth, discovered it at the age of 3, and our soulmates are saying, let's see, Heidi, I remember when you were on Maury. God bless Heidi. I remember her from Sally Jesse Raphael. So people have watched you grow up. Do you think you are an example of how to live with AIDS?
I feel like I can be, because I live my life boldly and unapologetically. And the whole people are not dating with HIV, we have to throw that out the window, because there are men who are more than willing to accept your status, being educated. And I just want to say that for any young woman or any young man out there who is living with, don't get down on it, because I'm here to say
you can find love or be in a relationship.
Are you married? Do you have children?
No, not yet. I'm dating.
Okay, that's good. You're gonna get there. Ray, I want to ask you. You have said that the most difficult thing is accepting that you have AIDS and telling those that you love that you have it. This kind of contributes to the stigma of it all. I spoke at the beginning of the show about how Ronald Reagan, the president of the United States, didn't even want to say the word AIDS or HIV, never made reference to it. And a lot of other politicians didn't. But the very first person you told you had AIDS was Reverend Jesse Jackson.
Actually, let's back up a little. I was infected. I've been infected with HIV for 37 years.
Okay.
So let's just say that I had been infected, kept my infection a secret. I worked in politics prior to, until the point where I started speaking and became this person. So when I appeared on the cover of Essence as the first Black woman to tell my story on the cover of Major Magazine, I had already been infected with HIV for about 10 years.
Oh, 10.
And in that time, I had only told like 5 people that I was infected, because, Haidea said it earlier. She said when she was diagnosed with AIDS, that's all we had was AIDS. And so in 1987 was when I was diagnosed from donating blood. It was 1983, I believe, when I was infected. And so after I had lived my life really in secret, in a quasi denial, I told 5 friends that I was infected, and I transitioned to AIDS. And back then, just like Haidea, the death sentence for AIDS, for full-blown AIDS, was 3 years. And so if you had lived 4 years, you were a long-term survivor with AIDS. So when I transitioned from HIV to AIDS, I knew that it was time to tell my family, my political family, that I had AIDS. But I was only telling them I had AIDS because I was preparing them for my death. And I remember standing in that kitchen with Reverend Jackson saying, Reverend, I have something to tell you. And, I had worked in both of his presidential campaigns. He had an AIDS policy. We had been out there on the front lines, but I was still too ashamed to say. And so finally I got it out and I started rambling and I said, I have AIDS. He said, you mean you have HIV? And I said, no, Reverend, I have AIDS. And for him, like, AIDS was the death sentence back then. And I was standing in front of him looking perfectly normal, not sick, really telling him that I was dying. And God had something new for me. 6 months later, I started speaking locally in the Chicago public schools, and Susan Taylor heard me speak at an event one night. Black event, black tie, Black Expo for Black women. Men had been hitting on me all night, sitting next to women, passing me their telephone number. And when I stood up, I said, Black folks, we're in denial. Not only do we have HIV, but I have full-blown AIDS. And you could hear a pin drop. And when I walked off the stage, Ms. Taylor asked me, could she do a story on me? And so then, of course, everybody knew that I had, AIDS.
We're going to take a quick break and we're going to come back because I want to get more information about In the Meantime Men. I don't even know what that means. So we're going to get down to the bottom of this thing, Greg and Javante, when we return on the Tammi Mac Late Show on Fox Soul.
Tammi Mac, Tammi Mac.
Fox Soul presents
He's written some of the biggest hits, and he's also produced. He's also an artist himself. Let's give it up for Jermaine Dupri.
Established with Angela Yee.
How were you and Snoop so tight that he was like, I'm sending Bow Wow to Jermaine?
Snoop used to smoke crisscross weed.
Every Thursday night.
Snoop loved crisscross because he used to say how much they look like little Crips and they look like little gangsters and this, that, and the third. So I met Snoop before Bow Wow even met Snoop.
Tammi Mac Show.
Back to the Tammi Mac Late Show on Fox Soul. I want to talk to Greg and Javante for a minute. Our soulmates are weighing in, so let's find out what Increase Mathers has to say tonight. So they can create a vaccine for an airborne virus in a couple of months, but not create a vaccine for AIDS in 30 years?
Yeah, 40 years.
Greg?
That's my question as well.
Oh, okay. So we're all asking that question. Okay.
The reality, we do, like Nathan mentioned earlier, we recognize that there is no cure. And everyone always says, let's fight this HIV epidemic, but most times nobody's talking about the cure. So a lot of times we're sitting here, we know that it's preventable, we know that it's treatable, but there is no cure. And I see daily all these young people coming into our office and just kind of recognizing that, they're at risk, recognizing they're nervous, they're scared because they don't know how to prevent what it is that the society is telling them that they're bound to have. The society will tell them you are bound to get HIV because you're a gay Black man. And and it's really disheartening to hear that, but that's what we're having young people come in here and say and feel. So we have to show them that this is how we can educate you about this. This is how you can stay safe. This is how you can prevent that. And yes, there is no cure. And I wondered the same thing. They have a lot of money. They're finding vaccines for the coronavirus, but of course, people are still looking and wondering whatever happened to HIV and why.
Look,
is that?
I've always thought that was a bunch of bullshit because they haven't come up with a cure for the common cold or herpes either. So, right. Let's keep it real. It's a lot of work that needs to be done when it comes to medicine. Javante, yes, talk about it.
Yeah, and we have made some progress and some strides. We have something called PrEP, a pill that someone HIV negative can take daily to reduce their risk of contracting the HIV virus. We went from multiple pills a day for someone that's HIV positive to taking one pill a day, and becoming undetectable, that we have heard about the earlier part of today's show. Undetectable equals untransmittable, to where it's almost impossible for someone that's HIV positive to transmit the virus if they're virally suppressed. So it is a little weird to me that we don't have a cure yet. We do have all of these tools to lower the risk of transmission when it pertains to HIV.
And Tammy, can I add one more thing? I think it's interesting that people feel that being HIV negative is the new minority, because most times they're saying that the rates are so high in our community that it becomes the minority to where, who isn't impacted by HIV. I remember, daily in our office, our executive director, Jeffrey King, he sits down with us and say, let's strategize and find different programs or different ways to make sure that people can stay empowered and know that they can stay safe, they can stay negative, and if they're positive, they can stay in treatment and stay in care. And I think it's really important that we just become empowered in who we are, what our experiences are, and what our realities are.
So what is the reality of gay men? Is it true? Is it true that it's inevitable that you will get AIDS? Or HIV? Let me say HIV.
I would say no, it's not inevitable. There's many, as we know, I'm speaking as if everyone don't know, but there's many that are not HIV positive, but there are many that are. And I'm not saying just with men, but women and trans women and men as well. So I think really it's just our community as a whole. But I would say the reality for us is the fact that yes, most adults are having sex. And yes, most adults need to be protected, and most adults need to be educated and understand that there are ways that we can make sure that these risks, not only HIV risk, but STD risk as well, are something that we can prevent.
And same, I'm sorry to interfere, but this, the point I was mentioning earlier is if we talk about prevention and treatment and transmission, start having those conversations, and these are ways that we can lower the risk of HIV when it pertains to HIV to the Black community and Black gay men specifically, and starting to have those conversations at homes, in our schools, in our churches. If we have those conversations in these different places.
Well, the church don't want to touch that.
Well, we got to make them touch it, and that's how.
Not all churches.
Okay, not all churches, because my church will touch it.
Have come a long way since the beginning of the pandemic. The thing about Black churches is we are never going to change a pastor's theology. I mean, that's a fact. But what we can meet Black pastors at a common ground. I've never had a Black pastor to say to me, I couldn't do testing in his church, or, Black pastors have brought me to speak across the country. And so they're open to the discussion because they know that we are
disproportionately in our community
impacted, but they ain't getting ready to talk about theology now.
So Ray, let me ask you this, because I think this is an important part of having a lifelong infection. I know you and we talked off air that you're no longer married, but you have been married, and you did at one time find love. And I want to know, how does a person do that if they're infected? Like, how does that work? I mean, I remember you saying also that the definition of a man is a man who can love you without sex. Do you still feel that way?
I was talking back then. That was 20 years ago. I was talking in the context of my marriage, because there were days where I was too sick to have sex, and it was still okay to be in this marriage. But the fact of the matter is that I've never had a man say no. So you have not heard me speak, Miss Tammi Mac, but I look forward to it. I look forward to say no. I have had men married to other women and having girlfriends who still wanted to have sex with me. I've had men wanting to have sex with me without a condom. So the sex has not been an issue. What has been more?
We were talking about the film 90 Days earlier. Do you tell them right off the bat? I mean, I think you do, but I don't know you like that. Do you tell them right off the bat?
You know what? I'm working on my memoir right now, and I'm actually in that section right after I was diagnosed. Now, so I was diagnosed in 87.
Right.
In 87, they had just given HIV its official name. Okay. Ronald Reagan had just mumbled the first words. So ACT UP, the big crazy AIDS organization that did all the credible work back then, they were formed in 87. So we were really, really, HIV AIDS was new in 87. And so I was afraid. I was afraid that no one would want me. I went through a crisis of who would want me with HIV. And then after I started, trying to come to some terms with who do I tell? How do I tell? When do I tell? So I decided very early in the AIDS pandemic that I would make sure he wasn't crazy, and that I thought he's someone that I may want to get to know a little bit better and just not hook up with. Mm-hmm. I would sit down and tell him that I'm positive. How do you tell somebody you're positive at the kitchen table with your clothes on? You cannot have a discussion about sex, condom use, all of that with one hand here and another hand there, and you in the groove and ain't no lights and you don't even know what you're getting into. And so it has to be not just a conversation, and it's not just a conversation that people with HIV should have. Every woman should sit down with her man. Every man should sit down with his partner and say, have you been tested for HIV?
Let's take a quick break. I hate to cut you off. I hate to cut you off, Ray. We got to take a quick break. We'll come right back on the Tammi Mac Late Show. All right, we'll be right back.
Tammi Mac.
The lovely, beautiful, and extremely talented actress Tiffany Haddish is here, and we gonna get into her love, light, happiness, and whether or not her and Common are gonna get married or something like that.
I'm a stand-up comedian, right? And that's a man's world. These men would try to belittle me, make me feel bad.
Friday on Fox Soul.
Sometimes I would like dumb it down and then get their ass later.
Watch Hollywood Unlocked, now on Tubi.
You could be spreading the coronavirus without realizing you have it, so do your part and stay home. It's important to limit in-person interaction with anyone outside of your immediate household, but phone and video chat are safe ways to connect. It's also important to limit social gatherings. If you need essential items like food and medicine, try using a delivery service. If you must leave your house for essential items, or if you want to take a walk for exercise, make sure to wear a cloth face covering. Stay at least 6 feet away from other people. Try not to touch frequently touched surfaces like light signals, street signs, or benches. And wash your hands with soap and water for at least 20 seconds as often as possible. This advice applies to people of any age, including teens and younger adults. It takes all of us to slow the spread of the coronavirus, so stay home unless absolutely necessary. Visit coronavirus.gov for the latest information.
Jeezy, I thought you were joking. You told me I got my own show. I'm bringing it to Fox.
Right.
I'm sitting down having serious conversation. I said, Jeezy just talking.
Worth a conversation with Jeezy.
You got two black men sitting down, we're going to have a good conversation. I already know.
We're going to do that, brother.
Every Wednesday.
What advice would you give to young directors, actors, producers?
You got the drive, you got a vision, and you willing to outwork everybody, nobody can stop you.
That's right.
On Fox Soul.
Welcome back to the Tammi Mac Late Show on Fox Soul. Hadiya, did we lose you?
I think my internet is going in and out.
Okay, you're back. You're back. Now, when I was talking to Ray and I was asking, when do you tell someone that you're HIV positive? When do you tell someone about your status? And I said, do you tell them right away? I saw you shake your head like, yes. So what is your situation? When you date, what's the process?
I really have a 3-date rule. Like, you have to tell them on the 3rd date. But really, it's in my Tinder profile. Like, it's on my Instagram, it's on my Facebook, because I want people to just know off bat, like, this is me, this is what you have to deal with. I don't want any surprises. And it also helped with rejection factor. But like, if I meet a guy at the grocery store and he wants to take me out, it's like a 3-date. Like, let me feel you out and see how you react to things. Are you involved in the community? Do you only care about shoes and cars and clothes and rims? Because then we probably won't last. So that's my 3-date. You have to tell 3 dates.
You have to tell them at 3 days. And you
by law.
Yeah. Oh, you're saying by law?
Yeah, it is.
Oh, I didn't know that. I was totally unaware.
I don't think, is it the law in Vegas? It's not in every state, Hadiya.
It's not in every state, but they do have HIV criminalization laws that we have to be careful of. So.
Oh, well, that's good to know. That's good to know. Greg, Javante, tell us about In the Meantime Men.
Yes. So In the Meantime Men is a 23-year-old 501c3 nonprofit community service organization here in Los Angeles County that takes a holistic approach to addressing the issues of Black gay men, same-gender loving in Los Angeles County. Greg, you want to touch on some few things that we do?
Yeah, we do everything from health education, where we have programs that educate young people. We recognize that, young people, young Black men whether they're straight or gay, they need to be in a position where they can develop their sexual responsibility at an early age. So we find ways to educate people at an early age. We do HIV testing. We do a lot of outreach, and we want to make sure that we do outreach because we want to meet people where they are. So as an organization, we go out to the community. We really see where people need our resources and need information, and we bring it to them. Another thing we do is we actually have group discussions every single week. We have something called Grab and Go, where we recognize because of COVID, a lot of people have lost a lot of access to hot meals. So we weekly make sure we provide that. We provide hot meals, mask, hand sanitizer, gloves, whatever people might need to stay safe in every way, including condoms and lube. We make sure that they have whatever they need. And we want to make sure that people have a place to call home. We want community to know that they live here. So what we do is we make sure that we're accessible and make sure that if they have something that even if it's a resource we don't provide personally, we make sure that we can link them to the proper place. We are that bridge for them. And I will also mention that, it feels good to be in an organization that provides these services, because I remember looking for these particular resources when I first found out I was HIV positive, and now I'm in a position to where I can help provide the service for other people in the community. And so it really feels great to have a platform that Jeffrey King built up 23 years ago, and he allows us to exert our creativity, our education, and our impact through this organization.
Haidia, someone wants to know, do you know about the sites for other positive singles? And is that a site that you're on?
I don't know if there's officially a site. There is a site. I can't remember the name. Right? Do you know it?
It's I think it's HIV Singles or something like that.
Yeah.
Haidia, you have your own. Let me know. Greg is serious about that. I think Greg want to be married more than you, Ray. I think
I'm open to it.
I'm looking for love in all the places. So Haidia, you also have your own company.
Yes, Broadband Communications. We do HIV awareness and prevention work, and we just partnered with World AIDS Day with other 501c3s that work in nonprofit to have a World AIDS Day party, and people can see that live on my Facebook. It was on Zoom. We hosted a party. We had a live DJ, and I had 5 young women come together and talk about HIV/AIDS. And that is my World AIDS Day candle that I am currently selling. You can find that on my Instagram and Facebook. And yeah, so Broadband Communications is a company I started this year before COVID. Thank you. Trying to keep it afloat. We're keeping it flowing and it's working. So we're going to have awareness days. We have February 7th, National Black HIV/AIDS Day. We'll be producing another event. And March 10th, Women and Girls National HIV/AIDS Awareness Day.
So for those of you viewers who are asking, let's see, the name of the site is posdate.com. So POSdate.com. Ray, I know from the cover of Essence magazine to all of the activism and speaking that you do, I hate and love at the same time to ask what you have going on, because I feel like I need at least a 30-minute segment with you all alone. I have to invite you back to the show.
Thank you. I would love to come back when my memoir is finished. I am writing my memoir. I am basically 2.5 years, almost 3 years in. The first year I worked by myself. I've been working with an editor. My memoir is called Unprotected. And I talk about how unprotected and violated I was as a child, what it was like to grow up in complex trauma, and how it created my way of thinking, how it affected my whole being and led to my HIV status. It's a tell-all book. I've never publicly said who's infected me. I talk about being an adult survivor of childhood sexual abuse and how that impacted my life. And of course, I talk about my years, my political years, which was the bulk of my of my campaign. I worked with Barack Obama. I worked on Senator Carol Moseley Braun's campaign, and I was the national youth director for Jesse Jackson's presidential campaign when I was 24. And so the book really is about how unprotected I was as a Black girl child, and how that crafted my way of thinking. African Americans, we don't really address trauma in our families. And so, you know, I'm using all of the most brilliant research, like Dr. Nadine Burke, some of her research on, you know, what happens to a child when, you know, they're living with the bear is circling your house all the time. And so I'm getting there.
We should be looking out for unprotected, right?
Unprotected.
All right.
And it will be this year. And we are looking for a late spring, early summer publication. The cover's finished. I should have sent you guys my cover.
What I'm looking forward to also, in addition to that, is for you to get with filmmaker Nathan and make that thing into a movie. But okay. Thank you so much, Ray. Thank you, Hadiya. Thank you, Greg and Javante, for being on the Tammi Mac Late Show and being so transparent with your stories. That concludes this edition of the Tammi Mac Late Show on Fox Soul. And until tomorrow, it's such a blessing to be in your box. Bye, y'all.
Take care.
Bye. Bye.